Good morning, dear students. As promised, I am trying to make some innovations so that your teaching learning process can be more interesting. And as a teacher, I personally feel that face to face interaction with students is very important in the teaching learning process. So that is why we'll be doing this kind of videos at least once or twice a week so that you can feel more connected. Now, today we are continuing with the chapter, and in fact, today's class is also very important because a lot of questions, long questions, they come from the society, Vedic society. In the last class, we had already talked about the importance of women and the position of king and the three bodies, Sabha, Samiti, and Vidhata. Today, also, what we are discussing is actually very important from examination point of view. So, pay attention. Now, first, we are talking about the class divisions. Now, when you are paying attention to the class divisions, it's mentioned here that the caste system is not mentioned in the Rig Veda, but there was some kind of caste division in the society. So, as such, clearly the word caste division or any kind of inequality is not mentioned in the Rig Veda. However, we know that some type of difference was there. Why? Because if you remember, I had told you that the Aryans they had come from Central Asia and they had settled in the northern part of the country. So when they came here, there were some original people who were staying in India, and these people were called the Dasyus. So naturally, the Aryans defeated these Dasyus and they established their supremacy in northern India. So there was some kind of difference in treatment. That means the Aryans they kind of gave a slightly inferior treatment to the Dasyus. So this was some kind of division in the society initially. Now what happened with time was that the Brahmins they started making a lot of money. They through the rituals and all they started acquiring a lot of wealth. So this led to inequality in society. And the classes that divided initially, they were the warriors, the people who helped the king, the priests, and the normal people. So that is what is written here that the early Aryans they called the local inhabitants Dasyus and they did not mix with them. It is said that during this period, the tribal chiefs and the priests they acquired a large amount of the booty, that means the wealth, and they grew at the cost of the kinsmen. This resulted in social inequality, and the tribal society was divided into three groups: warriors, priests, and people. Honestly, the word Shudra was not initially mentioned in the Rig Veda. If you remember, we had discussed that the Rig Veda had 10 mandalas, and the 10th mandala was the latest addition. So, this word Shudra actually appears in the 10th mandala. That means initially there was no such term called Shudra, it evolved later. And initially there was also no taxation. The reason is because, again, if you remember, I had told you the Aryans they were pastoral, they were nomadic people who came from elsewhere, and their main occupation was cattle rearing. So agriculture was not their main profession, so initially there was no taxation. However, in the later Vedic period the taxation evolved because the expansion became more and more, and to maintain the soldiers and the army, the rulers they start taking taxes. So that is what is mentioned here, that the fourth division called the Shudras appeared towards the end of the Rigvedic period, because the word Shudra is mentioned for the first time in the 10th mandala of the Rig Veda, which is usually considered a later addition. However, since the economy was mainly pastoral and not food producing, there is no scope for collecting regular tributes or taxes from the people. So, in the early Vedic period, there were inequalities between the Aryans and the Dasyus. Later, the priests started acquiring wealth and the division became priests, warrior, and people. And in the 10th mandala, the word Shudra has been mentioned. So, in the early Vedic period, basically, the society had different classes based on their profession. So, if a person is doing something related to a religious text, he became a Brahman. If he is a warrior, then he became a Kshatriya. If he is into some business or agriculture, so this clear cut actually words as Brahman and Kshatriya was not mentioned. Only that the evolution happened according to profession. So, if I am a Brahmin, my son automatically becomes a Brahmin. But with course of time, since this profession became hereditary, that means whatever a father did, the son also started doing that. A Kshatriya son became a Kshatriya. A person who has a business, his son started handling his business. So with course of time, this became hereditary. And that is why in the later Vedic period, it evolved into the four castes that we know today. So what are these four castes? These are Brahmans, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And initially it was based on profession, but it later became hereditary and very very rigid in the later Vedic period. So when we are discussing what did these people do, so these Brahmins were the priests that performed the religious rituals. Like you can see in the picture that they were the highest caste, and they were the scholars, they were the people who did the literary work. The second were the Kshatriyas, they were the soldiers and the warriors. The third were the Vaishyas, who looked after business, agriculture, and industry. And the lowest one among the four were the Shudras, who served the upper classes. Could be laborers, they could be servants. So, this question is very important. Name the four social divisions of the Vedic period with their occupation. So, please remember Brahmins performed the religious rituals, the Kshatriyas participated in the war, the Vaishyas were involved in agriculture and industry, and the Shudras served the upper class. So, what was the difference? Like we just mentioned, that in the early Vedic period, it was only on the basis of profession. It was very, very hard and loose. It was not very strict. It was not very rigid. But in the later Vedic period, it became very rigid, very strict. And movement from one caste to another was next to impossible. Among the four castes, the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, they enjoyed many privileges. Why? Because, like we discussed, the priest, they started showing themselves to be gods. They acquired a lot of wealth, and their position in society increased. In fact, when we study about religion, you will see that they had introduced a number of rituals that made religion even more complex, thereby increasing their position. Secondly, the Kshatriyas were important because they were the ruling class. You remember in the later Vedic period, there was a lot of expansion. And for this expansion, the soldiers were very important. Hence, the warrior class also became very important. And Upanayan ceremony is mentioned here. Upanayan ceremony basically means, Upanayan means opening of the third eye of knowledge. So what it is similar to what we have Janayu in Hinduism today. So when a person becomes a teenager, he is entering manhood, then a ceremony is conducted which was called the Upanayan. And this Upanayan, in the case of the Vedic period, this Upanayan ceremony was done when the child was about to enter the Gurukul. But this ceremony was only open to the first three classes, that means the Brahmans, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. It was not open to the Shudras. And since the caste system had become so strict, naturally intercaste marriages or intercaste dining, eating together, these things were not allowed. So if I ask you, discuss the caste system of the later Vedic period, you will say during the later Vedic period, the caste system became rigid. The Brahmins and the Kshatriyas enjoyed many privileges. The priests came to be considered as gods on earth, and the Kshatriyas also increased their power to be regarded as ruling classes. All the three higher Varnas were entitled to Upanayan or investiture ceremony, but intercaste marriages were not allowed. So please remember, question comes between the comparison of the caste system between the early and the Vedic period, and to name the four social divisions with their occupation. Now a 4-mark question also comes from the 4 ashrams, which is actually the simplest 4-mark question that you can have. So basically what happened was that a man's life was theoretically believed to be of 100 years, and these 100 years were divided into 4 ashrams, each of 25 years. They were called the Brahmacharya ashram, the Grihastha ashram, the Vanaprastha ashram, and the Sannyas ashram. So as you can see, Brahmacharya, from the picture itself, you can say in one word that it was synonymous with the student life. It started from 0 to 25 years, and during this period, a child was supposed to go to the Gurukul, stay with the Guru, and acquire knowledge. So that is what the Brahmacharya ashram lasted for the first till 25 years. During this period, the pupil was expected to acquire knowledge in the Gurukul and observe strict discipline. In the picture itself, again you can see Grihastha ashram. That means from 25 to 50 years, that was supposed to be a householder's life. A man was supposed to get married, and he had to raise a family, rear his children, and he had to take the ability of maintaining his family. This extended from 25 to 50 years. So please remember, during the period of Grihastha ashram, a man was supposed to marry and raise a family. As a householder, he had to take a responsibility of maintaining his family. The third one is called the Vanaprastha ashram, which was the next 25 years, from 50 to 75 years. During this period, the man was supposed to detach himself slightly. Like we have retirement after 50 or 60, now it is 60. So this was like a retirement phase for the man, where he had to leave the worldly life, the family life, and he had to get more of spiritual knowledge, he had to gain more of philosophy, and this was his job in the Vanaprastha ashram. This brings us to the last, the Sannyas ashram, where you can see he is meditating. So this was from 75 to 100 years, and this was a period of renunciation. To renounce means to leave everything. So the man was expected to leave everything and go to the forest, meditate, and try to get moksha or salvation. Salvation means to be free from the cycle of birth and rebirth and to become one with God. So that was the sannyas ashram. So when the 4 mark question comes that discuss the 4 stages of man's life, you will say an Aryan man's life was divided into 4 stages. The first one was Brahmacharya ashram from 0 to 25 years, where the pupil was supposed to go to the Gurukul and acquire knowledge. The second was the Grihastha ashram from 25 to 50 years, where the man got married, became a householder, and raised a family. The third was the Vanaprastha ashram from 50 to 75, where he had to retire from the worldly affairs and he had to acquire literary and philosophical knowledge. And lastly was the sannyas ashram from 75 to 100, where he had to renounce everything, meditate, and try to attain moksha or salvation. Which brings us to the last topic for discussion for today's class: education. So if you have watched Ramayana or Mahabharata, you would have seen that for education, the prince, they went to the Gurukul, the Guru, like if in case of Mahabharata, they went to Guru Dronacharya's house and they used to stay here. So education in the Vedic period happened through private Gurukuls. As the word itself, Gurukul, is saying, Guru is the teacher and Kul means family. So the child was supposed to live with the family of the Guru, and these families were usually at the outside the cities, almost on the edges of the forests, where there was quiet and it was more peaceful. So that is what is written here, that the residence of the Guru was called Gurukul, meaning the family of the Guru, and the Gurukuls were often located on the outskirts of the city or even in forests. Here there was the Guru and there was a Guru Mata who was the wife of the Guru. Now the Guru used to treat all his students like their own children, and the students also in turn, they respected the Guru a lot, and they used to do all the household chores for the teacher. In fact, when they woke up, they used to keep everything ready for the teacher. Their job was to wake up early, bathe, and to chant the hymns of the Rig Veda. Basically, the respect that was the amount of respect that was given to the teachers during this period is really commendable. You must be familiar with the shlok, Guru Govind do khade kake lagu paए, Balihari Guru aapne Govind diyo bataएं. So this means that if in front of me my Guru, my teacher and God, both of them come, then whose feet should I touch first? So I should touch the feet of my Guru first, my teacher first, because had it not been for my teacher, I would not even know who God is. So you can imagine that even more than God, respect was showered on the teachers. And this is the sort of respect which is somewhat lacking these days, which needs to be renewed again. So most of the teaching was done orally in the early Vedic period. If you remember Shruti, because the writing materials were not available, so knowledge was passed on orally in the early Vedic period. And after the education was complete, a ceremony was conducted and Guru Dakshina was offered. That means a gift was given to the Guru by the student for imparting knowledge, and the Guru was respected very, very much. So the object, that means the objective of education, this can come for 1 mark question. What was the objective of the education in the Vedic period? So it was about to bring the all-round development of the students, physically, mentally, spiritually, all sorts of development of the students. That was the aim of the education. And they not only taught maths and such subjects, but the study of Vedas, Puranas, grammar, logic, mathematics, all these subjects was very, very important. So it was not only ethics or moral values, but scientific subjects like maths and English and grammar, logic, these were also taught. And as I have already mentioned under position of women, that in the early Vedic period, women also received education. So some women like Maitri and Gargi, even they were very respected scholars and they wrote some hymns of the Rig Veda. So remember, for education, the child used to go to the Gurukul, stay with the Guru. The Gurukul may be on the outskirts of the city or in the forests. The students used to wake up early, chant the hymns of the Rig Veda, bathe and chant the hymns of the Rig Veda. The teachers were respected a lot. Most of the teaching was done orally. At the end of the teaching, Guru Dakshina was given. Many subjects like Vedas, Puranas, grammar, mathematics, etc. was taught, and the objective was all-round development, spiritual, mental and physical. And lastly, many women scholars like Gargi and Maitri, they had also received education and wrote the Rig Veda. So in today's class, we have covered many important topics. Please remember the 4 social divisions with their occupations. The comparison between the caste system in the early and the Vedic period. Remember that in the early Vedic period, it was very simple. It was only based on profession. but it later became hereditary in the later Vedic period, which was very rigid. Intercaste marriages were not allowed. Upnayan ceremony was open only to the first three classes. So this kind of comparison you will do. And lastly, lastly, we are talking about the four stages of man's life: brahmacharya, 0 to 25 student life; grihast, 25 to 50 married life; vanaprasth, meditating and becoming more of spiritualistic during this period, 50 to 75; and sannyas, 75 to 100, is a period of renunciation where you head to the forest and try to achieve moksha. And education we have already discussed. So I hope you like this something new that I have tried, and I can see more and more of likes and more of views, more than likes, that you all are liking history, and you all are going trying to get across with it. So all the best to all of you.